Hi everyone, my name's James Ivey with TSR Jivey Talks Tech, back with a plugin review this time, and one of my favourite sort of plugins, a freebie. This is the Air Music Edition plugin from Sound Particles. Now, I came across these guys at NAMM because they create and produce a lot of Atmos and immersive ready plugins, but Air is a freebie. And it helps us solve one of the two main problems in mixing. What are those two problems, I hear you ask? The two problems are, for me at least, spacing things out across a stereo or a multi-immersive field, and in most cases, we mean the pan control. But the more difficult of the two elements is gaining depth in our mixes, pushing certain elements back and bringing other elements forward in the mix. And Air helps us do just that. And I'm working on a mix for a British artist, Benjamin Bloom. I've been working with Ben for years, and this is a track called Supernatural that I've kind of updated a little bit in recent years with modern drums rather than drum machines and things. And it sounds a lot like this.
I get the strangest feeling, enough to make me paranoid. The only explanation, the only place where I can lay the blame for the unexplained. Play the game.
And I've been struggling to get the myriad of synth and kind of fake instrument parts to sit nicely and have some depth in the mix. So if we go over to said mix, you can see I've got an instance of Air on the piano, on the kind of riff part. There's a whole load of synths and bits and pieces. I've put it on, I think it's on the guitar master bus. There's lots of different guitars. It's a very kind of Muse-esque style track. There's a lot going on, but the piano takes the lead in this kind of instrumental section in the middle. Let me jump into there. And you can hear in that spot in particular, the piano is just getting lost behind those voices. Now, there are a lot of BVs in this track. I think we've got 4 backing vocal groups, about 25 parts, and it all layers up really nicely. But it's very difficult to get that kind of separation, that back to front separation. Left to right, no problem. We use the pan control, as I said before. But front to back is very challenging. And that is where Air steps in a big way. It's a really simple plugin to control. You have one main parameter, the distance. With a distance of 0, we have no effect whatsoever. And you see, as we roll the distance in at 20 meters there, you can see we start to get a kind of high-end roll-off, exactly as you would in real life. As a sound source gets further away from you, the top end does tend to roll off, which is very cool. Now, we can eliminate some of that attenuation because obviously as things get further away, they get quieter. And we can also counteract for that with a bit of additional gain. But What I'm going to do just to start us off is I'm going to mute the drums entirely. Then I'm just going to bring in the kick drum, because the way I tend to mix something like this is I'll get a great drum sound, and I think I've got that. It's quite heavily processed. If we just quickly listen to the drums and the kind of electronic percussion part in their own right, let's go in there. Kind of like a faux gated snare type sound. But what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to leave everything else in, but I'm going to mute the drums but leave the kick drum in. Let's go into verse 1, have a listen to the track without the bulk of the drums, because that hi-hat is getting in the way a little bit. And then I'm going to roll in some distance into that piano part just to separate it from the vocal.
I get the strangest feeling, enough to make me paranoid. The only explanation, the only place where I can lay the blame for the unexplained, play the game.
Let's try some air on the pad. And I think pad 2 is a kind of a moving string part. Let's have a listen to that.
Something's lurking, mystic forces working. Can you feel the supernatural? And if I trust my instinct, my emotion leads the way.
Air allows me to keep the volumes the same, so I'm not losing anything from the mix. I'm just losing the real top end, which is where the clash, if you like, can come from. The cool thing is, depending on how you wish to view air, you can either view it in imperial feet and inches or metric meters, which is great. The plugin is really easy to use, and it just helps out with, you know, what can be one of the most difficult elements of a mix, gaining some depth, especially later on when I get into this instrumental section where the BVs are very prominent. Actually, the guitars and the BVs are prominent at this point. It's really subtle, but to me it just helps push the elements of the mix back that aren't so prominent, which in turn brings the elements that aren't affected forward. The lead vocal, the kick drum are by far the two most important elements of the track. In this case, probably hotly followed by the piano, but it really just helps out with, say, what is one of the most difficult elements of a mix. Let's go into the first chorus. I'm going to bring those drums back in, and now we'll see how hopefully it all starts to blend together and fit a lot better.
It gives me reason to.
Let's jump to that instrumental section where the voices and the piano are potentially clashing. They're both really important and I want them to have their own space. Piano up front, voices filling in around the back. I think this is one of those mixes that's going to work really well when I spill it out into a Dolby Atmos environment. Let's have a listen. So I think in this case, that's really helping out a lot. One of my favorite sort of plugins, the free ones, and there are so many free plugin tools available out there. There's some really cool stuff. This is by Sound Particles. This is the Air Music Edition. There is a full version of Air, which they kind of point more towards a sound design and post-production environment. But hey, it's free. What's not to love? So I really hope you enjoyed that. If you did, I will leave all the blurb for Sound Particles Air Music Edition down there in the notes. Please do like, subscribe, hit the bell. All the normal stuff we ask you to do. It really is so important. But for now, my name's James Ivey from TSR Jivey Talks Tech, and I'll see you again very soon.